welcome to another video by Candy at stampwithcandy.com. I'm obviously Candy and I blog at stampwithcandy.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make this card using the Pansy Patch dies, but really the topic today is about this, the Take Your Pick tool. And here, I'm still getting used to this camera. It's only my second video, so it's going to take a while. Anyway, the Take Your Pick tool is a really versatile tool, and most people use the putty end, or they use the stylus end, which has, or the scooper end, or the, I guess it's called a spatula, and the piercing end, paper piercing end. But I'm going to show you a good use for the stylus end, and the end has two pieces, a little stylus and a big stylus, and I'm going to show you, well, you could use either one, but I'm going to use the bigger stylus end today. So having said that, let's get started. Okay, so as I said, this is our card. And most of it's pretty simple. I mean, it's a straightforward card. But I want you to take a look, and let me see if I can get this so that you can really see it, at the flower. Now, the flower itself is popped up on dimensionals, but look at those leaves. They're not on dimensionals. I just glued those on. But if you look at it, let me see if I can show you. Can you see here how they're popped up? And that's because of the way we use the stylus tool. So let's start with that in case my voice goes, because as you can hear, it's a little raspy. It's spring, it's seasonal allergies, and it's my asthma, and blah, 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 as my grandson would say. Lots of stuff going on, and that makes it not so good for my voice. Okay. So a lot of people find these dies. By the way, this is the suite we're using. We're using the Pansy dies, and there's 21 dies in this because there are a lot of pieces, which is why I think this set intimidates some people, because you look at all these pieces and you go, whoa, what's that for? And most of them are meant to be used alone, like this one, this one, this one, this one. There's only 4 that actually cut out the flowers that you stamp. But we are going to do a little stamping using the Pansy Patch stamp set. Here, that's a little shiny. Let me see if I can get that glare away from you. We're going to use the Pansy Patch stamp set because we all know how I feel about naked envelopes and boring insides. So we have to do something to liven up the envelope and liven up the inside. So we're also going to use the stamp set. And you'll see that some of the dies cut out these flowers. This is a multi-step stamp set. It's not just 2 steps, but it's multi-step because the flowers are so complicated in real life, and they really tried to imitate that. And at this time of year, pansies are my favorite flower because in my area of the country, which is just outside of Chicago, it's the first flower, other than the crocuses and the bulbs that come up. It's one of the first flowers, and it's somewhat frost tolerant. So we can actually start planting them well, maybe tomorrow. No, pretty soon, so we can start planting them. And they're always my very favorite flowers to plant. All right, so I'm going to move these dies out of the way because we don't need them anymore. And I cut the dies earlier because really, who wants to watch me die cut? It's pretty simple. You need one of these, 2 of these, 2 of these. And then the leaves, I wanted 2 of each because I wanted it on my flower. So now we're going to get to what I use the Take Your Pick tool for. So I don't know if you can see these. Let me see if I can get them close enough so that you can see it. but there are all these embossing marks, right? And those are there to give it some depth. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the take your pick tool and we're going to go down those lines to give them even more depth. And do you see what's happened as I went down those? Do you see how, I'm not sure you can see it, darn it. This one is flat, this leaf is flat, but this one, let me hold that. Can you see this? There you go. This one is popped up just from using that stylus on it. And now I can do the same thing here, and you're gonna see, here, let me see if I come down a little bit, if that'll help. Maybe even a little bit more. Let me bring that way in closer, and maybe that will help. Let me get this centered again. Okay, so you can see as I do this, do you see how the paper pops up? And now when I'm done with this, the petals will be all popped up, right? And here, let me try and get that so that you can see it better. You can see here, this one's a good one. You can see it's not laying flat anymore. Now the last step of this though is to go to the point where it's gonna be attached, which is right here. When I mean attached to all the other bits. And I'm going to stir it. Do you see I'm stirring it? And what that does is it really, really, really makes it pop up so that this thing already looks like it's on dimensionals. It is just so, let me show you. If I do this, maybe you can see it better. You can see it's not flat anymore, that there's a definite, it's definitely concave, it's definitely, it's definitely changed. And all I did was rub my stylus down the lines that the embossing or the die cut put in. Now, if the die cut hadn't put those lines in, I'd still do the same thing. But it's just that those give me a little bit of a guidance. So I have a couple more petals that I'm going to do the same thing to, and that's these white ones. And again, I'm just letting this go down those lines, and I'm using some force. And the other point is I'm on a mat, a Stampin' Pierce mat. You can't do this on a hard surface. You got to have something that has a little bit of give to it. And then again, I'm going to take this and stir it. And do you see how that just, it's not laying flat at all. If I go like this, maybe you can see it a little bit. Let me get that closer. Man, this is really hard to show you because of the camera angles, but I think you can see that maybe you can see that it's popped up a little bit, right? Like, I'm afraid it's gonna fall off. Oh, there you go, and it's not falling off. Do you see? It's about 1/4 of an inch off the top of my mat. All right, and so I've got one more to do, and that'll be the same thing. I'm just gonna go down those lines because that's what the flower does. And then I'm gonna stir where it's gonna join, and that really makes it flip up when you're doing that. And you can see again that this is no longer just a flat thing. It's got some dimension to it. All right, now I'm gonna use the paper pieces to give the color because I wanted to also show you how to assemble these dies. But the other thing that I am likely to do with this sometime is to, instead of using paper, if I really wanted these to look realistic, I wouldn't use paper, but I would use my blending brushes to brush the color on. And then they would almost look real. So making fake flowers is one of my favorite things to do. And in fact, when one of my really good friends, one of my best friends, her daughter was getting married, and she was doing a Game of Roses theme, and she wanted roses, but of course, you know how much white roses would cost, right? It would be, a fortune. So I made 200 white roses for her wedding, and they were on the tables as part of the table decorations. At each place there was a white rose. And what amazed me is, first of all, so many people thought they were real till they touched them. But then the other thing that amazed me was that all the guys put them in their lapels, and all the girls wore them in their hair. So you can, they didn't look like paper roses. They looked really realistic. Of course, I got a different kind of paper. Cardstock is good, but if you want more realistic, you need a softer paper so that it can bend a little bit more than cardstock. So these are the leaves, and I am doing exactly the same thing with the leaves. I'm just going down the lines that the dies put in them, and I'm holding it because otherwise it flies away on me. It gets away from me. And I'm using quite a bit of pressure. I'm not just, like la la. I'm really kind of holding them. And then again at the bottom, I'm going to stir them because that gives them a little bit more dimension. And of course, on the other side, you can see that, there's lines and there's veins. Again, with these, not only would I be inking the edges or, or adding some color to them with the blending brush if I were really doing flower. If the point of this was flowers and not take your pick. I would also be inking with a darker color, like I use my blends to get a darker veins on this to make them look more realistic. I've actually taken some classes on how to make paper flowers. So my mom and grandma were big crafters, so I come from a long line of them. And my mom's specialty, was quilting, but her other specialty as far as paper goes was making paper flowers. And I always had paper flowers in my bedroom because I've always loved flowers. There's something about them that makes me happy. All right, so I noticed this one isn't as popped up as I would like. So I'm gonna go back over this a little bit more, go over those one more time, and then stir it a little bit more because it was looking kind of flat compared to its friend there. Okay, so now since I'm gluing, I do want a little bit of a sheet there. Okay, a silicone mat so that I don't get everything all goofy, sticky. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna, put the edging on them. Now you can make these, so this is the other thing that's kind of cool about pansies is that they come in all colors and varieties and some are 2-tone, some are 3-tone, some are 4-tone, have 4 different colors in them. And so what I love about them is that I can make them in any color I want, right? And they'll be almost realistic. All right, so I'm using my art glitter glue because I've told you before I'm not really crazy about the Tombow because it's so sticky. And I'm using my tweezers because I don't want to get glue all over my hands. And so now I have to play with this. And the other reason I like glue is that it gives you that 1 or 2 seconds of, oh, I can get it, I can wiggle it if I need to. And this isn't quite right, but it might be too late. Oh, no. Okay, good. All right, so now I've got that one, and now I'm going to put the purple on the white. Okay, let me make sure I can still see. You can still see me. I'm going to put the purple on the white. Okay. And then again, this is the same idea where you're just going to put it along the top of the flower. You can barely see that because my head's in the way. Back to I can't see today. All right, so that's pretty much done. And now let's do the other one. The nice thing about the silicone mats are that really the glue doesn't stick to them. It comes right off, and And so they're nice to work with when you don't want to get stuff messy. So, and I probably have too much glue on this one, but I'll just squeeze it off. Here, let's move this up so that you can really see what I'm doing. Okay, so here we go. Get that on, get it in place, and again, it lets you wiggle it a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to put the flowers together a little bit, and basically all we're going to do is put some glue right here on the tip, again, because we want dimension. If I glue it up too high, I'm not going to get the dimension I want in my flower. My flower is not going to be as pretty, right? So I want, when I say pretty, I mean it's not going to be as realistic. You know, you kind of want them to look good. Although with this paper border, they don't look as realistic, but they're cute. And so I'm like, okay, that's fine. I might have not gotten that over right. Okay, so then I'm going to stick those both on the back and set them aside a minute to dry while I assemble my leaves, because I'm going to do a couple things. I have 2 more pieces to put on there. I have this little beard, and I have this little dot, and I'll put those on, but I want to stir that a little bit more so that it pops up a little bit more. So all I'm going to do for the flower, for the leaves, is I'm going to put this little dot of stuff right there, of glue right there, and then I'm just going to pinch it like that so it stays. And I may stir that one more time, although those are looking pretty dimensional. And then I'm going to do this, another dot of glue there. Don't need a lot, and I'm gonna stick that. Now, if I wanted it even more dimensional, and I probably will do that, I just will lightly, I don't know if you can see this, let me try and get it close. I would lightly do this. Just pinch the tops of those just a tiny bit, okay? You know, because leaves aren't flat. You know, they're real, they're organic, and they're not flat. So just a tiny pinch right at the top there will make those leaves really stand out. I might do this again in the fall when we have all those fabulous leaf sets. Okay, so the leaves are done, and now I'm going to just stir this a little bit more. There, it's popping. It's really popping up. I'm not sure you can see that, but here, let me see if, you know, if I get it to the right angle, then I'm in danger of it going. So by doing that, it just really makes it pop. Okay, and now I'm going to put on the last 2 pieces, which are the this little bearded thing. And this one I might have to get my head in the shot to be able to see it. Sorry. You know, having no depth perception is really, it's a challenge for some things. Okay, so now I just line that up so that it covers the little hole there, right? So it kind of lines itself up, because there's there's this, where they meet, there's like this little round piece or section. And then that makes it simple, because I'm just going to put a dot of glue on here. And then I'm going to just use this and do this. Okay, so now this is ready to go. And our leaves are ready to go, so we can move on to to pretty much assembling the card. Okay, so let's do the inside and the envelope first, because those, well, because I want to let that dry a little bit more. Those require some stamping. Okay, so for the envelope and the, sorry, got to get all my stuff in order, and my card, I stamped the detail stamp. I wanted a cleaner look. Now there are 3 other stamps that go along with this, or maybe 2, but I didn't want them to be that. I wanted a cleaner look. So I just stamped this without any background. And the reason that works is that there are pansies that actually look like that. Okay, and that was in Gorgeous Grape. And now I'm going to get the Fresh Freesia out, and I'm going to stamp that. And again, I'm just going to line that up. And this one I have to kind of do like that. Like that. Sorry, I did get my hand in that. Make sure I didn't get it in the wrong one. Okay, and then I'm going to use Bumblebee to put the center on. And so this works because there are pansies that look just like that. Some other flowers you'd probably have to use all the different stamps to make it look right. But here, you don't need to because there's white pansies. Purple and white are one of my favorite. Purple and pinks are some of my favorites. But I do like the orange and yellows too. So that's the nice thing about them. You can, there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different colors, a lot of different pansies. And then they make me smile. Okay, so next we're going to stamp Gorgeous Grape again on our inside panel. Okay, and then put that over to get cleaned. And then we're going to stamp the little bearded piece. And then we're going to stamp the, I don't know, it looks like the nose. They do look a little bit like faces when you're done. Okay, so that's our inner panel. And there's one more thing to stamp with the Gorgeous Grape that I'm going to do right now. And that is, this is a birthday card. And normally I would have put the happy birthday on the outside and the front sentiment on the inside. But I wanted a more striking front. So I'll show you that in a minute. So I'm going to stamp happy birthday there. That looks good, and we're done with that stamping. And so now we're going to go work on the front of the card. So it's a Gorgeous Grape base. And then I have a piece of, from the Pansy Patch Designer Series paper. Now, the Designer Series paper is retiring and is only available till May 2nd. Because it's retiring from the catalog. However, the stamp set carried over and the dies carried over. However, they're not a bundle. So they're a bundle now, but they won't be a bundle in the new catalog, I don't think. And so you might want to get them now because for sure you can get them at a bundled price now. So anyway, normally I would stamp and then put this on, but since my sentiment is going to go right there, I want to get this on first so that I can, align, center the sentiment a little bit better. So now, do you ever have the problem with this Stamp and Seal? This is the new, tape runner from Stampin' Up. They've had it about a year now. And a lot of people complain because it doesn't always start. Like you go to do this and nothing happens. So there's a trick. Get a silicone mat, and you don't even need one this big. You can use one that's like a quarter of this, and just do this, and that gets it started again. And so then that makes this much easier to use, much better. And, it's really, really, then I found that it works better. Now, some people have said they don't like it because it's so hard to use. But the reason I like it is that the old snail used to only hold up for a while. So my friends would say, hey, can you re-glue your Christmas cards? Can you come over and re-glue your Christmas cards? Because they were falling apart. And I have one friend who actually uses them on her mantle. Every Christmas card I've ever sent her is on her mantle. So anyway, next we're going to take some Versamark and we're going to ink up this sentiment that says, wishing you, I can't even read it. I guess we'll wait till it's done to read it. Oh man, you guys are gonna think I'm such a space. Okay, so anyway, see now, you see what I mean though about how I wanted to be able to line that up a little bit better? Because, you know, if I put this on, I guess I could have done the same thing with this, but to me it was easier to do it this way. Okay, so now I've got that stamped, and I'm going to put a little bit of embossing powder on it. And then I'll show you a second use for the take your pick tool. So we used to have this thing called an embossing buddy, and we don't sell it anymore. And there's some other things on the market that we could use, but we don't sell them, and I try to only use Stampin' Up stuff. And the reason for that is, you know, our colors are good. They all coordinate so well. They're all, you know, they're all really high quality, and they're great. Okay. So what I did is I poured it on, and then I used my thumb and I give it a bunch of flicks, right? Flick, flick, to get off the spare, the excess. But, let me get this off. If I bring this up really close, I don't know if you can see it because there's a shadow. Yeah, right here. Do you see? There's some stray dots. So I am going to use my putty, my take your pick tool putty, and I'm going to grab that excess stuff, that excess embossing powder, and there's a little bit right here. Now, the bad part about doing this is that now I can't use this putty for something because I'll get embossing powder on it, right? So this putty has embossing powder on it. So then what I do is I just take my snips and I cut off that little bit of the end. There we go. And now there's no putty on, there's no embossing powder on it, and I can use it again to pick up embellishments or whatever I want. So anyway, that's the other use of it. So I will be right back. I've got to go heat emboss that. So when I designed my craft room, I worried about electricity on the other side of my desk because that's where all the computers are. But I didn't think about heat embossing, and so I have to get up to do that. So anyway, now you can see it. It says, wishing you a little extra happiness just because you're you. So I could have put happy birthday there and that on the inside, but anyway, I kind of like the way that looks. All right, so we're almost done with this now. All we have to do is put our liner on the inside. Okay, and that's pretty straightforward. Just like that. And then all we have to do is put our flower and our leaves. Now, on my original, I used a dimensional, but in retrospect, I realized this pops up enough that I don't need a dimensional. So I'm just going to use a tiny bit of liquid glue. Well, that's more than a tiny bit. Oops, my I'll fix that later. Put some liquid glue on here. Press it down. Put that back where it belongs. There we go. And it looks like I've put a dimensional on it. Now, will this get squished through the mail? Absolutely. So with these kind of cards, what I do when there's so much dimension in them, I put another piece of cardstock on top of it, right? And then I use one of, as I've said before, the butterfly stamps. You know, one of these times I'll remember to bring one out and show you what they look like. And the butterfly stamps are not machinable. So when you have one of those, they hand cancel it. And that way, yeah, you pay a little bit more, but you can do, you know, beautiful flowers like that and get them through the mail. I think I want those to angle a little bit more like that. And look at those leaves, they're popped up and you can, without even touching dimensionals. So anyway, that's one of the ways I use the take your pick tool. It's probably, well, I won't say the most used piece, but I use the putty tip to pick things up. I use the stylus to make flowers, and then the other piece I use a lot is the paper piercer, because there's all kinds of things you can do with a paper piercing end. So I hope you enjoyed today's card, and I hope this video was helpful and that you get to see how you can use a stylus to make your flowers look almost real. All right, take care. Good night.